Hi there, this is Todd with Industrial Comfort. If you've seen any of my recent videos, you know I've been hard at work making cutting boards and rolling pins. I thought it was appropriate that I also make a video showing you how to maintain these rolling pins and cutting boards to extend their longevity in the kitchen. Now, when working with wood in the kitchen, it's inevitable it's going to get wet, whether or not it's coming in contact with wet or moist food, or you're washing it after you're using it with food. The wood is going to get wet. And when moisture gets into the wood, it raises the grain. And that raised grain feels very scratchy and almost somewhat abrasive. So what I'm going to show you today is how you actually get that silky smooth finish again so that you have your cutting boards and rolling pins for many years to come. If you recall from my cutting board video, I actually intentionally moistened the wood before the final sand. This was so that I could get that grain wet so that it did raise, and then I could knock it down again, which creates a much smoother finish. There are only two things you need for this process. You need something to sand with, either a piece of sandpaper, a sanding sponge, or a sanding block. And then you need some oils, either mineral or walnut. So when it comes to the choice between these oils, I think most people are probably going to go with mineral oil because you can get it pretty much anywhere, at the drugstore, the supermarket, etc. However, it never dries out, and therefore you're going to have to go through this process more often. Alternatively, walnut oil, with the way it's processed, does actually dry. And so it penetrates and creates almost like a resin-like finish on the wood. It's not as easy to get, it's not as ubiquitous, and it's definitely more expensive. So for today's video, I'm actually going to use mineral oil for this exercise. So let's get started. So to refresh this rolling pin, you can either use a sanding sponge or a piece of sandpaper. Personally, I like the sanding sponge a little bit more because it'll hug the contour of the rolling pin and make the sanding process a little easier. Now, you really don't need to have that much pressure. You don't have to do it that much. You're essentially just knocking down the raised grain. So you want to do it with either a 220 grit or higher abrasive. This one is actually 400, which is what I prefer because it leaves a really, really nice smooth finish. Essentially, you just want to give it a quick hit. It is smooth again, so we're going to go ahead and add the oil. I like to wear gloves. You don't have to. I mean, this is food safe and easy enough to get off, but I prefer to use the gloves. We'll put a little oil on. We'll rub it in so that it gets fully soaked. If the wood is really dry, this stuff will soak right in and you'll see dry spots, which I actually don't see on this pin. And so you'll want to keep applying until it stops absorbing. And you'll want to let it sit for about 20 minutes to a half an hour, and then you'll wipe down any of the excess. It's that simple. I'd encourage you to use this simple technique anytime you feel it's necessary, from the point of view that either the wood is absorbing moisture or it's starting to feel really rough. And following this process will extend the life of your rolling pins and your cutting boards. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks.